Michael was 68 when he started standing in front of his open freezer at exactly 8:45 every single night. He'd just stare into the cold air, looking at a pint of ice cream with a bright green label that promised it was diabetic safe. Everyone else in his family had just enjoyed a real bowl of dessert after dinner. But Michael had spent the last 5 years skipping the treats at his grandkids' birthday parties, watching from the kitchen counter while everyone else laughed and shared a meal. He had stood in the grocery aisle until his eyes blurred, reading tiny labels, trying to find anything that wouldn't cause an immediate, stressful jump on his daily glucose readings. He almost quit eating dessert entirely because the constant monitoring just wasn't worth the anxiety. His world had shrunk to a series of rigid restrictions, missing out on the small, comforting rituals of life just to keep his numbers steady. But here's the interesting part. On paper, Michael was doing exactly what he was told to do. And this is where the real data shifts. The reason many people over 60 find themselves trapped in this exact cycle isn't because they lack discipline. It's because the health advice we routinely receive is often incredibly oversimplified. During a standard rushed medical visit, the focus is almost entirely on what to eliminate. We are handed a list of restrictions and told to avoid sugar at all costs. It sounds straightforward, yet the underlying lifestyle frustration remains because general lists rarely cover how complex, real-world foods actually behave in an aging body. When nutrition researchers analyze metabolic data, it becomes clear that human digestion is rarely as black and white as good foods versus bad foods. In observational dietary studies, a fascinating pattern emerges. Certain traditional full-fat dairy items often demonstrate a surprisingly moderate glycemic response compared to highly refined, starchy carbohydrates. In broad nutritional tracking, it's frequently noted that the composition of full-fat dairy can result in a more gradual, stable digestion process than everyday staples we often view as harmless, like a plain bowl of white rice or a slice of standard white bread. Now, to be completely clear, this does not make traditional ice cream a health food. Every individual's metabolism is entirely unique, and real-world responses depend heavily on the brand, the exact ingredients, and portion size. But it highlights a crucial concept that many people aren't shown. The way a food affects your system depends on its entire molecular matrix, not just a single word on the front of the label. When looking at real, full-fat dairy, there are natural structural components that interact during digestion. Nutritional science shows that the presence of natural fats can help slow down gastric emptying, meaning the food moves through the stomach at a more gradual pace. Additionally, dairy proteins are naturally associated with the normal release of digestive hormones involved in satiety and fullness. These aren't medical miracles or hidden secrets. It's just standard human biology responding differently to whole food structures than to heavily processed chemical substitutes. If you've ever stared at the freezer shelves wishing for a satisfying option without that heavy cloud of anxiety, understanding how real foods work can completely change your approach to daily wellness. Let's look at 5 mindful, whole food alternatives frequently highlighted in nutrition research, including 1 simple homemade option that costs very little, and 3 commercial products currently sitting in the grocery aisle that might be quietly working against you. Let's start with number 5 on our list, which is an excellent option for anyone who prefers whole food alternatives. A fresh banana out of the fruit bowl contains natural sugars and a moderate glycemic impact. However, bananas also contain varying amounts of what nutritionists call resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that partially resists standard breakdown, moving through the system more gradually. While simply freezing a fruit doesn't magically alter its entire composition, using frozen fruit as a base is a fantastic way to achieve a rich, creamy texture without relying on processed white sugars or artificial corn syrups. To try this at home, you can slice a ripe banana into coins and freeze them. Toss them into a blender with 2 tablespoons of natural, no sugar added peanut butter, which introduces healthy fats and plant proteins to help support a more gradual digestive pace. You can add a pinch of cinnamon and a teaspoon of unsweetened cocoa powder for flavor. Blending it smooth creates a texture remarkably similar to soft serve, with zero artificial chemical additives or synthetic sweeteners. A practical note for anyone tracking their daily wellness: the first time you try any new food swap, check your glucose meter an hour or two afterward. Personal data is always the most accurate guide for your unique body. If you've noticed a similar pattern of rigid restriction creeping into your own routine, sharing your experience in the comments helps show how common these daily dietary challenges really are for folks navigating these choices. Our number 4 choice is exploring modern alternatives sweetened with allulose. Allulose is a rare sugar found in very small quantities in nature, in foods like figs and raisins. Because the human body doesn't fully metabolize it, it passes through your system without contributing standard calories or causing the typical glucose response associated with regular table sugar. Several nutritional reviews suggest that when allulose replaces standard sweeteners, it can significantly reduce the overall post-meal impact on your system. For those who prefer the convenience of store-bought pints, brands like Rebel, which relies on a base of heavy cream, or mixed Swedish-style desserts are highly popular in the wellness community because they focus on these non-metabolized ingredients. They are premium options and tend to cost a bit more, running about $6 to $7 a pint. But if you want a simple pre-made treat occasionally, they offer a much cleaner profile for your freezer. On the surface, many mainstream low-calorie options look completely safe, but underneath, the way they are manufactured can easily catch you off guard. Number 3 is a highly accessible option for nights when you want a simple, convenient choice. Treats sweetened with a combination of erythritol and stevia. Neither of these non-nutritive sweeteners triggers a typical sharp blood sugar response. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol that is largely absorbed and excreted by the body unchanged, while stevia is a natural plant-derived sweetener that doesn't add carbohydrates to your day. Widely available options like Halo Top, such as their vanilla bean flavor, Enlightened Keto, or So Delicious, which offers a coconut milk base if traditional dairy upsets your stomach, are incredibly easy to find in almost any grocery aisle. Flipping the carton over to check the label is a simple habit. Seeing erythritol or stevia leaf extract near the top of the ingredient list is generally a reliable indicator of a blood sugar conscious option. However, a quick word of caution: our digestive tracts can sometimes become a bit more sensitive to sugar alcohols as the years go on. It's always a wise idea to start with a modest quarter-cup portion to see how your stomach handles it before making it a daily habit. This brings us to a very common scenario that highlights our number 2 option: homemade frozen Greek yogurt. Consider the experience of Martha, a retired school teacher, who found herself incredibly frustrated with her evening routine. She had stripped every single comfort food out of her kitchen in an effort to manage her health, but the constant feelings of deprivation left her stressed, exhausted, and constantly fighting late-night cravings. She decided to take control by making her own simple dessert at home. She took real, full-fat plain Greek yogurt, added a touch of a non-glycemic sweetener, and tossed in a handful of fresh berries before freezing it. By enjoying a modest half-cup serving in a small glass dish every evening, she gave herself a comforting ritual that satisfied her sweet tooth and actually helped her stick to her broader nutritional goals over the long haul. The critical detail here is choosing full-fat Greek yogurt over the highly processed fat-free versions. The natural dairy fats work in harmony with the protein to support normal, steady digestive pacing, which is exactly what keeps you feeling balanced. And that brings us to the number 1 whole food alternative, and the one that is highly recommended to try first if you're looking for a simple change. It might sound a bit unconventional at first, but if you blend full-fat cottage cheese until it is completely smooth and chill it in the freezer, the texture becomes incredibly rich and creamy, turning into an excellent soft-serve alternative. More importantly, a half-cup serving delivers roughly 14 grams of high-quality protein, far more than traditional frozen desserts. As we age, our bodies naturally require a steady, reliable intake of protein to help maintain lean muscle mass, which is foundational for physical strength, balance, and maintaining our daily independence. With an alternative like this, you are enjoying a satisfying evening treat while naturally adding valuable structural nourishment to your day. In our next video, we are going to break down 5 common breakfast choices that many of us eat every morning, genuinely believing they are healthy, which might actually be causing unexpected early morning blood sugar spikes. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on those practical, real-world data breakdowns. Now, before you head out to the store, let's address 3 critical warnings about products specifically marketed as healthy choices for seniors managing their glucose. One of them might be in your freezer right now. Warning number 3, low-fat and light commercial ice cream. When food manufacturers strip the natural fat out of dairy to lower the calorie count on the front of the box, the food loses its natural texture and flavor. To fix this, companies frequently load the product with extra processed sugars, starches, or thickeners. Because the natural fat that contributes to gradual digestion has been completely removed, these options can actually cause a faster, sharper blood sugar rise than a modest portion of regular, traditional ice cream. If you switch to these brands, please don't blame yourself. You did it in completely good faith to look after your health. The commercial food industry designs those labels specifically to look like sound wellness advice. If a product relies on words like skinny or fat-free, but replaces that fat with a mountain of hidden carbohydrates, it's usually best to leave it in the aisle. Warning number 2 is commercial frozen yogurt chains. Many of us grew up believing that frozen yogurt was the ultimate healthy alternative to ice cream. However, many commercial formulations contain just as much, if not more, added sugar as standard desserts to mask the natural tartness of the yogurt. Furthermore, because they are almost always low in fat, there is very little substance to moderate how quickly those sugars are absorbed. What you make at home with simple, full-fat plain Greek yogurt is an entirely different food compared to what comes out of a commercial soft-serve machine. But the most common pitfall in the supermarket freezer aisle isn't frozen yogurt. It's the product carrying the very label designed to make you feel the safest. Warning number 1, sugar-free ice cream sweetened with maltitol. This is a massive trap when you are monitoring your glucose. The words sugar-free are printed in bold letters on the front of the package, but if you scan the ingredient list, you will often find maltitol or maltitol syrup. Unlike erythritol or allulose, maltitol is a sugar alcohol that possesses a significant glycemic index, meaning it can cause a notable rise in both blood glucose and insulin levels. Because the package reassures people that it's sugar-free, it's incredibly easy to eat a larger portion, inadvertently leading to a much higher blood sugar impact than expected. Additionally, in older adults, larger amounts of maltitol can frequently cause digestive distress or bloating. Take the case of Kenneth, a retired electrician who couldn't understand why his evening numbers remained so high despite completely avoiding traditional sweets. When he looked past the marketing on the front of the box and checked the actual ingredient list, right there in the first few lines was maltitol. Once he swapped that out for a truly non-glycemic alternative, his daily readings became far more predictable. He noted that he had followed the front of the box exactly, feeling like nobody had given him the full story. That is exactly why we have to look past the front of package marketing and read the actual ingredients. Traditional foods were never your automatic enemy. The secret lies in understanding the actual ingredients, practicing mindful portion control, and choosing options that naturally support your body's normal digestive pace. When you make these simple whole food adjustments, you'll likely find that your post-meal numbers feel much more stable. By opting for real proteins and healthy fats over highly processed chemical substitutes, you can enjoy your evenings without that heavy post-sugar fatigue. Think for a moment about someone in your life, a partner, a sibling, or a close friend who received a diagnosis and immediately felt like they had to abandon every culinary joy in their life. Sharing a balanced, research-driven perspective with them can show them that there's a practical, enjoyable way forward. Take a look in your freezer tonight. Check the labels of your favorite treats. If you find that your sugar-free options are packed with maltitol or hidden starches, consider swapping them out on your next shopping trip for simple, real food alternatives like plain full-fat Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. The body that carries you through your 70s, 80s, and beyond is supported by the consistent, mindful habits you build today. And for many people, that realization changes everything, because the real question isn't how old you are, it's whether your daily life still feels like it belongs to you.